Hi, this is Carson Clutie, recording for Module 13 and having to do with tort law for educational law. To begin, the definition from our textbook is that a tort liability is an actionable or civil wrong committed against one person by another. There are repercussions for schools that other people and other businesses might not have to deal with, or at least it's different if you're involved in a school. First of all, for individual staff members, they themselves can be sued. It's not enough that you work for a district and you think, well, if I do something wrong, the district will take the blame, not me personally. That's not true. If an individual is found to be negligent or in the wrong, they themselves can be sued. Along with that, groups of teachers or whole districts can be sued if the circumstances warrant that. There are two types of tort liability: intentional tort and unintentional tort. The case law and the studies that we will look at here in just a second really deal with both of these, but it's pretty self-explanatory in the name. Intentional torts is when in an educational sense, a teacher would do something against a student, or probably another teacher, but specifically against a student, where it was something where it was intentional. It was something almost bullying, where you can say it's intentional, it's on purpose. And an unintentional tort, the difference would be that maybe it's an accident, it's negligence, it's something where the teacher didn't mean for an accident to happen, but it did because they were not doing things the way that they should have been done. So to begin looking at the different types of cases, the first one is NM versus Anchorage School District. Before we get started, you'll notice the initials NM. Because the child was a minor, the parents opted to just have his initials said for this case. So when it was reported in the papers, this is all that was said. So facts of the case is that there was a kindergartner who was running to his mother right after school. He tripped and fell, and a stick actually went through his eye and into his brain, and that changed his life forever. He did live and survive, but his life was drastically different. His parents claimed that he would have to live in a home or under care for the rest of his life, and his family was awarded $4.5 million by the district when it came through court. So if this happened at my district, there would be obvious efforts to remove the exposed stumps. But in addition, I feel the district would have every staff member, and even they would bring in experts to come in and look for potential liability issues. And to prevent such happenings, in this specific case, aside from taking out the tree stumps, no running signs could be installed. And then there could be teachers who frequently told the kids of these rules. And that way, I think that would absolve the district of more liability if they, were constantly reminding students of this and had signs posted. But also, changing how students are picked up or dropped off would have changed the situation as well. Second case we're going to look at is Mitchell versus Cedar Rapids School District. And the facts of this case is that there was a 14-year-old special education student that was raped by a 19-year-old special education student. Several teachers had seen them previously having physical contact and kissing. Nothing was said to either of them. Some teachers said that they just felt like they assumed that it was a legal consensual relationship and that it was okay with the parents. One day they left school early while school personnel was ruled in court that they were negligent because they did not take proper care of the student that was under their observation. They did not mark them absent, or the 14-year-old was not marked absent right at the beginning of class, so they did not know that she actually left early. So reactive measures that my school would have done after a situation like this, my district would do a couple things. First of all, I believe there would be an immediate reminder to take attendance at the beginning of each class. It is school policy, but I think, myself, I've personally, not done it at the beginning of the class sometimes, or even forgot for a couple class periods. So there would be a constant reminder. I think there would be a watchful eye over that. The next step is to make sure everyone has their assignments, in terms of observing kids, and that they stick to them. There would be no thinking that, oh, I thought that was their responsibility, I thought it was my responsibility. They would have just, they have their specific job and they're supposed to do it. Any proactive measures the district could have taken, first of all, they could have used this, any district from now on would use this case as a lesson for professional conduct, where they would say, if, as I just mentioned in the reactive measures, that it is your professional duty to monitor and be responsible for these students. So I think if that set of guidelines was put in place, that would have helped. And when the school also would have reminded the teachers that when the policies are not followed to the letter of the law, that teachers can personally be held liable, as I said at the beginning, where if teachers would have done what they were supposed to, if they would have marked the student absent at the beginning of class in this situation, I think they would have been absolved of responsibility because they were taking careful watch over her, but because they missed that she was not in class, they were found to be negligent in this case. The next case we'll look at is Donna versus Town of East Haven. And the facts of this case: there was a runner on a track team that ran into a bench that was placed into the first lane of the track. The runner fell and fractured his wrist. The mom sued the district because, according to the school's handbook, it was the duty of the coach to make sure that they're in a safe environment, that, no unforeseen thing, not a freak accident, but something that they could foresee should be taken care of ahead of time. This was an interesting case because the district and the teacher were not found guilty. They were not found guilty because it did not happen on school property, and track was a voluntary event. You assume more risk if you go out for an extracurricular than if you had just, not done that. So I think they said if it would have happened on school property and say it was a PE class and they were running and this happened, the school, or at least the teacher even, could have been liable. So a reactive measure my district would have immediately: any situations could have resulted in injury of athletes, they would have had that fixed or taken care of. They would have promptly reminded everybody that, you can't do things like this, or that you cannot, try and think ahead and look at situations where students might be injured and try and avoid those. And then proactive measures to prevent this type of situation: coaches could do a couple things. Number one, they could make clear the direction for each drill, explain the reasoning, and then also explain the potential danger. So maybe the student was not told, we want benches in the first row so that you have to run farther. You don't sneak into that first row, because if you're running on track, you run more on the second lap. So if that drill maybe could have been explained to the student better, this could have been avoided. This next court case took place in Omaha, or Millard, Nebraska. During a golf lesson during PE class, they were in the gym because it was raining outside. A student was struck and killed by the backswing of a club. It was found that the teachers were in violation of written policy of the school. And an interesting part is the administrator did not know the policy was not being followed until after the incident. So the teachers were both found, it was a teacher and a student teacher, were both found negligent because they directly violated the school policy. Had they stuck to the school policy, number one, the accident might not have happened, but if it had, I think they would have been covered under the district and not been held personally responsible because they followed what the school wanted them to do. So reaction: immediately following a situation like this, my administration probably would have reviewed policies and make sure that teachers are following them. And then again, use this as an example of saying how individual teachers can be liable for not following policies. As a proactive measure and to prevent a tragedy like this, an administrator should be monitoring classrooms. They don't have to be in there all the time, but if they make a walkthrough every day, you can gain a good perspective of what's happening in the class and see what's going on. So, had an administrator come in earlier in the period, maybe they would have caught that the policy was not being followed. So not only is it good practice for educators or for administration to walk through, it also helps enforce policies like this one, and there may not have been a tragedy had that happen. Oops, excuse me. The last case that we're going to look at is Barrett versus Wichita Public Schools. In this case, in the mid-90s, there was a football player that collapsed and died after practice of heat exhaustion. The mother filed suit on behalf of her son's estate, and then tried to hold the coaches and the district liable for negligence. And this is yet another case, like I said, where coaches or school employees can be held personally liable. And this is, I think, the point, at least, that I'm going to take from this lesson, is that you're not immune, and nobody should ever think they are if they're a teacher, because there are situations like this all the time where individual teachers are singled out for their negligence. So as a reaction, administrators would immediately be out at all practices. They probably would have stayed for the rest of the year, all practice, all the time, and they would at least go over in depth the guidelines for getting used to the heat. There would be more mandatory training. Classes would be taken with professionals as a preventative measure, and to alleviate any risk from the district. If the district would take away their their risk. Maybe individual teachers could be sued still, but if the district made it a policy that they would go look, or that they would train their teachers, they would bring in experts, and they would have everyone sign that they received this training, it might alleviate the district from some responsibility. So they would take classes regardless or regarding heat and illness, and not only would this possibly prevent any more tragedies because people would know more, but it could also, as I said, relieve the district of responsibility. Here are the sources that I used to find these laws, and there's also the citing of our textbook. So here you go. Thank you.